In the last episode of our trip to Florida in the spring of 2020, we arrived at Highland Hammock State Park as we moved toward the interior of Florida. We learned that they do actually have bears in Florida in some places, and we got to have some of the fresh local orange sherbet type of ice cream that is awesome. We checked out the CCC museum, and we finally got to check into our campsite and got our tent set up. And then we talked about what we wanted to do for the rest of the afternoon, and we decided to go check out some of the trails and boardwalks that they have at Highland Hammock.
So don't let the weight of the world slow you down. And if you search for the meaning of life, it won't be found. So take your insecurities and leave them all behind. Let's learn to make the most of our time. Of our time.
If you're an older person or disabled or whatever, it's a great spot. Still do it.
All the trails are pretty short, too.
Yeah. If you have a bicycle, or if there's parking across the street, but if you want to ride your bike, go around the loop, and then just go for a little walk.
I think that's what we'll do tomorrow.
Yeah.
A little biking, a little walking. And there's even benches.
This must have been a decent amount of work.
Yeah. Highland Hammock is one of Florida's first state parks. It opened in 1931, and the Florida State Park System was officially established in 1935. But this area was recognized pretty early on by some local residents to be something special that they wanted to preserve. So they got together and started the process of building the trails and making sure that this area was protected. One of the biggest things that people come here to see are the very old oak trees. There's one live oak that is about 1,000 years old, and it measures 36 feet around at the base of the trunk. You doing your best tourist impression? I've never seen oranges just like growing wild. I didn't realize that they did that. There are wild orange trees all over the park. Everywhere that you're walking there's oranges on the ground, and you can look up and see oranges growing in the trees, which is really unique. I've never seen oranges outside of an orchard, but we were told that the oranges that grow wild here are very sour. Very different from the oranges that we are used to eating from the store, the ones that are cultivated in orchards. There is even a trail on the loop called the Wild Orange Trail because there are so many wild orange trees in that one particular area. But then we headed back to our campsite as the sun was starting to go down. I started to cook dinner, and it ended up being a fantastic sunset, so I had to stop cooking for a little while and take some pictures. As the sun went down, Patrick got the firewood and started a campfire, and we stood around and enjoyed the campfire for a while. We were kind of missing our camping chairs. When you're flying somewhere to go camping, you have to be a little bit more selective with what you bring because the airlines have weight limits, but we made it work. It was a little bit chilly that morning. I woke up early and went over to film the sunrise as I made some coffee. One of my favorite things about camping is that the morning can be really slow. You don't have to rush anywhere, you can just enjoy it. So once I had my coffee, I got back into my sleeping bag and brought my book over. This is one of the times when I get to do my other favorite thing, which is just relaxing and reading a book, because it's something that I hardly ever have time to do when I'm home. In the last video, we talked about how much we love our Kelty Stargazer tent, and this is another example of why this is my favorite tent. We left the Stargazer side open last night, so I woke up to the very first light of the sun coming up in the morning, and if it is chilly at night, you get those first rays of the sun on you, and it feels so good. These are the little experiences that you would miss out on if you were staying in a hotel room. You just don't get that closeness with the rhythm of nature the way that you do when you're camping. One of the things you can get at the camp store here are bikes. So today we decided to rent bikes. And this may or may not be a good idea. I can't actually remember the last time I was on a bike. When's the last time you were on a bike? Yeah, I don't know. Well, probably too long. And they don't actually have like hand brakes. I think it's like the old-fashioned ones where you pedal backwards to stop.
Yeah.
So, alright. We're gonna go explore some of the trails that we didn't get to see yesterday. It was definitely a bit of a challenge being on a bike for the first time in quite a while. I sort of felt like a baby giraffe with new legs. But after a few minutes of practicing in the parking lot, we felt confident enough to go and explore the trails. And really, if you have a bike, and I would suggest having your own bike ideally so that it's actually the correct height for you, which was one of my problems. But if you had your own bike, this is really the best way to explore Highland Hammock. You can go from one trail to the next. They have little areas to park your bike. You can walk on the boardwalks and explore the trail, and then take your bike to go to the next trail. It's a great way to get around at Highland Hammock, so if you're going to go, bring your own bikes. When you're going for a bike ride here, you can stay on the main paved loop with all the hiking trails, but they also have some dirt trails that go a few miles around the back of the park. We were not feeling that confident, so we stayed with the paved loop and just visited some of the hiking trails. The Cypress Swamp Trail is one of the most popular walks in the park. Most of this walk is on a raised boardwalk that goes through the swamp, and it runs over Charlie Bowlegs Creek. This is such a popular walk because there's a lot of opportunities to spot wildlife. There are many birds back here, and when you're going over the creek, there's an opportunity to possibly see an alligator in the water underneath the boardwalk, so be careful of your footing. This plaque says that walking through the Cypress swamp is almost like stepping into a time machine. It brings you back to a place when plants look different, and it almost feels like a dinosaur could walk out through the forest. At this period of time, the plants really needed to stay closer to water sources, and it gives that feeling of stepping into a time machine. Thanks for coming along on this trip with us. In the next episode, we enjoy another day exploring Highland Hammock State Park and looking for an alligator.
Well, you worried about you and me, the injustice, the next president to be, the news and what you hear, your career. It's time for you to face those fears, and it's all fair to be aware, and I'll be there, so don't be scared. Just take a deep breath of air, and 1, 2, 3 to 10, you begin to focus again, and though time flies, we'll have enough to realize.